Hello friends, welcome back to Digitalk. In this session of Kubernetes, I am going to cover a very basic and very important section of Kubernetes, how to create a pod, okay, and then how to create a container inside a pod. And then we can navigate inside the pod and the container. Okay, so what we have learned in the previous sessions in the basics of Kubernetes, it is Kubernetes as an orchestration tool, which is used for the end-to-end management of the containers. Okay, or you can also say the pod. Okay, so what is the difference between pod and container is that a pod is a collection of multiple containers. Okay, so in a Kubernetes cluster, you can have multiple nodes, or you can say multiple physical servers, right? And each and every server where we can have a multiple pods are running. Okay, and inside a single pod, you can have a multiple containers. So you can say pod is a collection of multiple containers, right? So in this session, I will explain you how to create a pod. So there are different ways to create a pod. Okay, and I will show you the initial basic method. Okay, using the YAML file. So YAML is a specification. It is a language, okay, that is specifically used mostly in the DevOps. And in case of Kubernetes, this YAML file is used, okay, for creation of the resources. It's a very simple file. Okay, the syntax is very simple. You have to understand few concepts of the YAML file. And once you have a complete clarity on that, you can easily create the YAML files, and then you can create the multiple resources in the Kubernetes. Okay, so there are some specifications of writing the content in the YAML file, specifically in Kubernetes. Okay, so I will tell you few important sections, and then I will show you how to create a pod and a container inside a pod using a small YAML file, and then how you can navigate inside that particular pod or container that you have created. Right. So now to create a pod, okay. So this is the small YAML file. Okay, and what exactly in the YAML file? But before that, let me clear you three important sections. So there are multiple sections inside a YAML file, but the initial three important sections, which derive your all other sections inside your YAML file, is the very first thing is you have to specify the API version. Okay, this API version is it depend on what is the version of your Kubernetes API. Okay, and for that you have a command. This is a kubectl API hyphen resources. Okay, this command you can use. Okay, and then with the help of this particular command, you can check what is the API version. Okay, so this is the first basic thing that you have to define and each and every YAML file. So whatever the resources that you are going to create, for that, first you have to define the API version in the YAML file at the top. Okay, and the command that I have shown to you, this you can use this to check the API version. So let me show you that. So my local Kubernetes is running. So let me run this command and let me show you. Okay, so here you can see the API version. This is V1. So in the YAML file, we are going to use API version as V1, right? So this is the first thing that you have to write in the YAML file. Second is kind. So what kind of a Kubernetes resource that you are going to create? Okay. For example, if we are going to create the pod, so for kind, we will define as a pod. So here is the small API, YAML file that we are going to create the pod. The first thing is API version. We have given V1. Now, second is kind. So we have multiple resources like you can create the services, deployment, config, mag, multiple things are there. So we are creating the pod. So the kind we have defined as pod. Here you can see that, right? And the third is your metadata and specs. So this is metadata and then specifications. So inside the metadata, we defined the parameters for your resource that you are going to create, right? For example, here we are creating a pod, right? The kind we have defined as a pod. So for this pod, we have to give a name, right? So that name we can define inside the metadata tag. And this metadata is the specifications or parameters that we are going to define for this particular resource which we have defined inside the kind, which is pod here. Similarly, you have multiple more parameters are there. We will explore in the later sessions. Okay, the initial basic parameter is name. So this name will be the name of your pod, right? And then you have the specification. So this specification is for the containers that we are going to create inside this particular pod. Okay, so there could be multiple containers inside a pod. So this is the initial basic session. So I am going to create only one container. Okay, and then later sessions I will show you how you can create the multiple containers as well inside the pod. Okay, so now under specification, we are going to create the container. So the first tag you have to define as the containers, right? And then after container, you have to give the hyphen and then name. So this is the name of the containers. Okay, so this is the nginx hyphen container. This is the name of the container. Okay, and this container will run inside this particular pod. And the name of pod is my hyphen sample hyphen pod, right? So this is the container name. And what exactly we are creating this container? We are creating this container from the basic image of Nginx. So that means it will pull up the Nginx image, okay, and then it will run the Nginx web server inside this particular container, right? So this is the initial basic YAML file, okay. But the important thing that you have to understand, the three important sections, not in fact three, four important sections that will be part of each and every YAML file, okay. The first one is the API version. I have shown you how you can get this particular version. Then kind, what kind of a resource that you are going to create. Metadata is specifically related with the resource that you are going to create and inside this kind. Then specifications and then containers, and these are the details for the containers. Now you can have multiple parameters. You can assign the port to a containers, and similarly you can have multiple parameters. These are the few basic initial parameters that you can specify for the demo and testing purpose initially when you are learning the Kubernetes. Right. So now we are clear on the YAML. Right. We have some concept in our mind now. What exactly is the YAML? How we can define or create the YAML files for the resources that we create in Kubernetes. Right. Specifically for the pod, with a single pod and with a single container. Now to run this particular YAML file to create the pod, the command we use kubectl apply -f and the name of this particular YAML file. Okay. So this will create your pod, and then inside that pod it will create a container using the Nginx image, right? So now, so let me execute this one. So this command we have seen how we can check the API version. Now I will create this small YAML file. Okay, so let me go to a folder. So here let me create a file. Okay, let me copy paste the content here. Okay, this is the same YAML file that we have discussed just now. I will give it a name. Let me give it a demo deploy underscore pod.yaml. So let me rename this file. Okay, let me give the name. Okay, let me rename it. Yes, okay. So this YAML file we have created. So now what we will do, we will run this command to apply this command. So this will create a pod and then a container inside that pod, Nginx container, right? So, okay, so what I will do, I will just modify a bit. There is a small mistake here. So this image is the Nginx image, okay, and the name of the container I am going to give Nginx hyphen container, okay, and the image name that it is going to pull, this is the Nginx. Okay, so let me update this here as well. Okay, let me save it. Okay, so now we are done with the YAML file. So let me explain it again. So we are going to create a pod. Okay, and this is the name of our pod. Inside that, it will going to create one container. This is the name of the container, and it is based on the Nginx image. Okay, this will by default pull from the Docker Hub public registry. Okay, so now let me apply this one and let me create. Okay, let me take it again. Copy. Okay, so now you can see that pod Nginx pod created. So that means now the pod is created using this particular YAML file. You can check the status of the pod, okay, with the help of kubectl get pods command. Okay, so this is the command that you can use to check the status of your pod or for listing of your pod. So now you can see that this is the pod that we have created. Let me show you again. This is the name that we have given for the pod. So this is the name of the pod. It is ready one by one. That means only one container is running there, and status is running. That means the container is up and running, right? So we have created a pod. Now, if you would like to check the containers inside this particular pod, so for that you can run the command describe. Okay, and this is the syntax: kubectl describe pod and the name of your pod. So let me run this command. So now you can see that it is giving you the more detail here. Okay, and if you go to the section containers, okay, here only one container is there, and the name of container is Nginx hyphen container. Okay, so this is a container that we have created here. You can say this is the name of our container, right? It is reflecting here. So this is a command to check the status of the pod, and this is a command to check the status of the containers which is running inside a particular pod, right? Now, if you would like to move inside a pod, okay, maybe inside a pod or maybe inside a container, okay, so for the command is, so this is the command for if you would like to go inside your pod. So let me correct it. This is the full command. Okay, so this is the command that you can use to navigate inside the pod. Okay, and this is a command that you can use Oh, okay, let me do it here. Yeah, this is the command to go inside the pod, right? And if you would like to go inside the container, which is inside a particular this pod, for that you can give this command. Okay, the difference between both is that here we are giving only the name of the pod, and to move between the container, okay, we are giving the name of the container as well, right? So now let me run this command to go inside the pod. Okay, now you can see that we are at the root prompt, and we can list the files because this is a pod which is based on a small Unix based system. Okay, so we can able to navigate here, and we can run the Linux commands here. Okay, so this is how we can navigate inside the pod. So now similarly, if you would like to go inside the container, right, the container which is running inside this particular pod. So let me change the name of the pod. So this is the command. Let me run it. Okay, let me see what is the problem. Nginx hyphen pod hyphen c Nginx container. Let me see the name. Okay, so the name is double hyphen. Okay, so let me now correct it and let me run it again. Okay, now you can see that we are at the root prompt. Okay, so now we are inside the container. Okay, so this is the way how you can navigate inside your pod, and this is the way how you can navigate. So how is navigation is important? Multiple times during the troubleshooting, when we say that our applications are running in the Kubernetes, and actually that means is that our applications is running inside the containers, right, which is there inside the pod. So multiple times we need to navigate to the inside the containers for to view certain kind of a configuration files, to view certain kind of a startups or multiple scripts, maybe for certain kind of a logs. So you should have aware about that one. What is the process? How we can navigate inside the pod, or how we can navigate inside the containers with the help of qctl command, right? So when your exercise is done, make sure to clean up the environment. So for that you can clean the pod that you have created, and the command for that is you have to come out from the container, and you can run qctl delete and then pod and the pod that you would like to delete, and you can give the name of your pod. Okay, so this will delete your pod. So by this way you can clean your environment. So in this session, we have covered a basic thing, how the specifications of a YAML file, how we define the YAML file, and then how we can create a pod with the help of YAML file along with a container. Okay, and in next session, we will learn how we can create a deployment. Okay, or maybe we will learn how we can create the multiple containers using the YAML file.